It is now 9:05 on August 20th, 25, in the Brazos County Commissioner Court. Budget workshop continues, and this is day
8.
Day 8.
Huh.
Day 8 of
8. This is the last day.
I just wanted to see that smile.
It's a trick question.
At this point, I have nothing left. I think that we've done the best job we can to present this budget, and we're to the end of the rope. And so I want to see y'all smiles, especially after when we conclude this meeting. I hope that this county, the staff, the employees, the department head elected officials have met the expectations of the public proceeding in a budget that they're proud of, especially the Commissioner's Court that they're proud of. In that tone, we are going to have a discussion of the tax rate. Before we get to the discussion of the tax rate, we're kind of needing to wrap up this big present with a bow and discuss the fund balance, the general fund balance. And First Assistant County Auditor Marcy Turner will go into the first discussion.
Thank you. Ms. Payne. Good morning, Ms. Turner.
Good morning, Marcy Turner, First Assistant County Auditor. We're going to go over the general fund balance, and if you can look at the screen to your left, the first number is the $173 million of general fund balance we had on our annual report dated September 30th. That is our audited number. There are some pieces of that fund balance. Fund balance is, in essence, if you go back to your early accounting and finance classes, it's like the retained earnings of the county in the general fund, okay? There are some things that are not spendable, and those are inventory and prepaid expenditures, okay? So we automatically have to take that number out of our fund balance as a non-spendable fund balance. And then from there, we have $1.1 million. These were, again, numbers all reported on our annual financial report, our annual consolidated financial report for September 30th, 2024. We got those audited financials in late March of this year. $1.1 million in restricted fund balance is also taken out of that general fund balance. We cannot spend those restricted fund balances to balance our budget. That includes all those items listed there. Most of those are funds we received that have not been spent in prior years that are for restricted purposes. So they are then taken out of that fund balance. The final number that we take off that fund balance from 2024 is the committed emergency fund balance. That's what was adopted last year. I can't remember exactly what date. It was in May, I think, of 24, where the court decided we're going to take a percentage of our revenues and regular ongoing revenues, not one-time revenues, regular ongoing revenues, and reserve that part of our fund balance as an emergency fund that will only be touched if the court needs to declare an emergency. That calculation, when we did the resolution, was $36 million. So at the end of September 30 of 2025, the amount of fund balance that was available was $132,807,000, $822 on top of that. Then we came back to you earlier this year to do a recalculation on the committed emergency fund balance, because we had gotten our we'd gotten our final revenue numbers from our annual report in March, and we needed to recalculate our 25% committed emergency fund balance. Doing that resulted in an additional $3.9 million getting added to our committed emergency fund balance. And you'll see that just underneath the 132. So those are all the things we do know that have already happened. The part we don't know is what's going to happen between now and the end of the fiscal year. So we have to do estimates. I actually had to report these estimates to the tax assessor collector on July 15th. So this estimated fund balance was our best guess for what the general fund balance will be on September 30th of this year as of July 15th. We start with estimated revenues. We took the budgeted revenues and we backed out the budgeted. And so if you were to go look at the budget we adopted last year, our total general fund revenues, we backed out the use of fund balance, we backed out our indigent assigned fund balance, and we backed out our assigned contingency reserve to get to that estimated revenue, general fund revenue number of $165 million. And then our estimated fund expense, we worked with Nina in the budget office, different departments that have capital projects to come up with our best estimate for what we think expenditures will be for the end of the year. That involved basically taking the total budgeted expenditures for the general fund from last year, backing out any unused transfers to our capital projects fund, backing out any unused transfers to our debt funds, our grants funds, any unused indigent health expenditures that we thought would come in under budget, the portion of our unused contingency expenses that we thought we would not use, and any rollovers of road and bridge capital outlays, i.e. capital projects in road and bridge that are started but not finished, so they will have to be budgeted for next year. So then we took them off of the estimated expenses for the rest of this year. We then took that number and said 95% of the balance of that is what we think our estimated expenses are going to be. And we got to $184 million. That leaves our estimated unreserved, uncommitted fund balance for September 30th of 2025 at a little over $110 million. And that's the amount that is available for you all to balance the budget. Are there any questions?
Commissioners?
No.
No questions? I think we're still ciphering, but Ms. Turner, thank you. Ms. Payne?
I want everybody to keep this number in mind, the 110 million, because we'll need that when we go into the discussion of, right now I'm going to do a short overview of what the last 2 weeks, last 7 meetings have entailed regarding the general fund expenditures, and show you where we're needing to balance the budget in 15 million. This is a general fund. Marcy, earlier last week, I went over the revenues, and so this is a bottom line expenditures. You could tell that we do have a lot of red because we tried our best to decrease where needed to decrease. The general government ended up being a 13% decrease compared to last year's budget. Justice system, 5% increase. Law enforcement, 8%. Juvenile services, 3%. Public transportation, a negative 5%. Public health, a negative 35%. Human services, it was 137. Keep in mind that 10 million is for the expo deferred maintenance. That's why it's such a big increase. We moved it from the general government to the human services for the expo. I've highlighted the other finances, which is the transfers. This is where we have to transfer the general fund into other funds. Say, for instance, grants, our capital, our debt fund, on projects that we've already went over, and that's where I'm going to go ahead and show you where the increases are coming from. Oh, I do want to show you. A total increase to the budget as of today is only $2 million compared to last year. I think that's a good thing. But $2 million. Part of this $15 million, and this is just, I picked out the biggest increases. Because there's so many small ones, but the biggest increases is a 4% cost of living, which is a 2.5 million increase. The benefits associated with the COLA is 830,000. The accrued salary and benefits for 2 days, keep in mind that how our payroll hits, it never ends on the last day of the fiscal year. It begins on the first day of the fiscal year. So 2 of the days for this next year will be pushed back to the previous year, and so we have to account for that. Positions, reclassifications, deletions, or salary adjustments that we have went over is a total increase of 288,000. Increase to community support was 969,000. This was to the appraisal district, the 911, the 4 volunteer fire departments, as well as the Brazos Transit. The Axon contract that Commissioners Court approved back in June was additional 1.1 million to the budget. Departmental increases, and this is, departmental increases, this constitute a lot of statutes that have been passed. Say, for instance, for the county courts at law, their bond had increased. I believe that the previous bonds were like 500,000. I think now it's over $1 million. So some of these increases are due to that, as well as contractual agreements that have been passed through the court this past year, which is $4.7 million. The one-time onlys are regarding laptops for new positions or building a fence, things that only happen one time that will be deleted back in 2027. So I do separate that. It's another $4.7 million. We have a major decrease in the amount of 4.2, which was due to indigent health care that we talked about Monday. Now the items are highlighted are items that are being transferred to other funds. The first one is transferred to the grant, $2 million. This is for our portion of juvenile grants for the positions, human trafficking, and the TIDC grants. The $470,000 is transferred to what we call the ARPA grant fund. This is for the medical examiner to help finish that project. $731,000 will be transferred to certificates of obligation. Commissioners Court had approved the Furrow Creek Road, and so we're using debt to finish that. $135,000 will be transferred to the off-system road bond, which is the Odor Reliance contract that was approved back in June or July. $60 million will be transferred to certificates of obligation for the 101 North. And then, of course, it transferred to the general fund capital in the amount of $14 million. My goal going into all these discussions, I set a limit to capital just because we don't need to use 100% of fund balance. And so my goal was not to expend more than $90 million in fund balance. At the end of the day, we have, in order to balance, we have spent $92 million. So I'm $2 million above my goal, which is okay, because we're leaving $17 million in fund balance not touched. So with that being said, out of the $110 million, I will need $15 million to balance the general fund balance.
Would you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Out of the $110 million, along with all the transfers, I will have to use $15 million to balance the everyday operations of the general fund balance,
Okay.
which
Thank you.
is all of this right here. Okay. Are there any questions regarding balancing the general fund and the $15 million?
Commissioners?
No.
All clear?
This year, we're not using 100% of fund balance, which last year we did. This year, we're not. Like I said, we're going to leave $17 million on the table. Okay? Next up, we're going to go ahead and ask Ms. Marcy Turner to come back up. This is where we're going to start the discussion of the tax rate.
Hey, can I ask a quick question?
Please, Commissioner Nettles.
So I thought the 101 Main was 50 million.
Correct, and I was directed to add another $10 million for the fourth floor.
We've not voted on that.
Nope, we have not.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to go through a presentation on ad valorem tax rate. I know as commissioners, you all have, some of you are very familiar with this process. You all have been through kind of commissioner's boot camp, so you know a lot of what I'm going to say on the first 5 slides, but I'm also doing this presentation for the benefit of those who are watching live or who will watch this workshop delayed, and also for all citizens and taxpayers, so we can all be on the same page about how we raise tax revenue for Brazos County and the process of calculating our tax rates. For those of you who are not math geeks, this is going to be a little bit of a stretch, so everybody hang on. I'll take it real slow. Okay. Ad valorem tax revenues are set by taking the tax rate and multiplying it by the appraised value. The tax rate is set for Brazos County is set by you, the Commissioners Court. And the appraised value is set by Brazos County Appraisal District. It is set, it's a snapshot of the appraised value as of a certain date, usually around July 25th of the year. But total appraised values change on a daily basis, depending upon litigation and appraisal review challenges. It's very important to note for the public that the Brazos County Appraisal District is an independent organization. It is separate from Brazos County. Even though it has Brazos County in the name, it is not under the direction of Brazos County, the political subdivision and administrative unit of the state of Texas.
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay. A couple of terms we need to go over to make sure that everybody understands what they mean. The ad valorem tax terms. The no new revenue rate, it's also often called the NNR, is the tax rate that raises roughly the same revenue as the previous year on properties that have been taxed in both years. The voter approval rate is the highest tax rate a local taxing unit can adopt without needing voter approval. The M&O rate, or the maintenance and operations rate, is the portion of the tax rate that's designated for maintenance and operations, and this specifically is the tax revenue that goes into the general fund. The INS rate, or debt rate, is the portion of the tax rate that's designated for the payment of interest and principal on outstanding debt. Okay, let's talk a little bit about how the no new revenue rate is calculated. I'm just going to hit some high points. The first thing that we do, again, we talked about how the appraised value is a constantly moving number. And we get an appraised value on or around the 25th of July. When we go to calculate our no new revenue rate, we have to go back in time and look at our appraised value from last year. The problem is our appraised value from last year has changed since July of 25th of last year because of people protesting their valuations and litigation. So the first thing we have to do is recalculate the prior year appraised value. There are several things that impact that. Changes to the amount or the dollar amount and number of prior year tax ceilings, the prior year value lost through litigation. I've got arrows there because we're going to talk about that some more in some upcoming screens. The prior year estimated value loss through ARB disputes, so people who've gone to dispute with the Appraisal Review Board, there's a calculation that's put into the prior year value for that, and then changes to prior year exemptions. We also need to recalculate the prior year tax levy, and there are two things that really directly impact that. One, any taxes that were paid between July 25th of this year and July 25th of last year on last year's taxes that now have been refunded back to the taxpayer because they either settled or won litigation. And the other piece is the recalculated prior year appraised value, which is, of course, this number that we've already talked about up here. With that, we take our recalculated prior year tax levy and we divide that by our current year appraised value, less any new improvements and any new personal property, and we get our NNR rate. Any questions on that?
Commissioners?
Okay. Now let's talk about the voter approval rate. We calculate the current year no new revenue M&O rate. And there are two things that directly impact that. The prior year adjusted taxable value, which we just talked about in the previous screen, and also the taxes that were refunded from the prior year, which we also talked about when we were talking about calculating our NNR. From there, we add rate adjustments for state mandates. There are calculations on the tax calculation worksheet specifically for counties. If our expenses increased in the last year over the prior year in housing state criminals, in housing, in indigent defense, or in indigent health care, we get pennies on our tax rate added to that. This year, it's 0.004 cents to our tax rate. Then from there, we take that result and we increase it by 3.5%. That's what the legislature, state legislature has mandated, the highest we can go. Prior to 2019, that rate was 6%. In 2019, the state legislature dropped it to 3.5%. And there's currently, in the last special session, legislation that got through the Senate, dropping that to 2.5%. It has not been adopted.
So what is the impact of that, Senate Bill 10, dropping it to 2.5% to our budget?
I don't know the impact to our direct budget. I know it basically takes 28%. If you take 2.5 divided by 3.5, it takes 28% of our tax rate movement away from us.
The optional movement.
The optional movement,
Right.
yes.
So we are not, for the public listening, we're not looking at making that full 3.5% move, but we lose the option of it if that's SB 10 passes.
Exactly.
Is it
Or is it
SB
not?
10 or SB 9?
I think it's 9,
It's
but I
SB
might be wrong
9.
on that, so.
Which we need to be careful and watch as this special session continues and see if the governor adds it to the call.
Yes.
And if he does, we need to make a lot of phone calls.
And then from there, we add the unused increment rate. I won't go into a long discussion of that, but basically the unused increment rate is cents to your tax rate that are banked from prior years when you did not go all the way up to the voter approved rate. Currently, it goes back for 3 years and it's rolling. We have right now an unused increment rate that's in our VAR this year of 0.017176 cents. That is our oldest year. So the 2 years that are more current are 0 cents. So we, in effect, will lose this increment in FY27. Okay. I want to point out to the Commissioners Court and to all that are listening that the state mandates are not in our NNR calculation. Okay? The debt rate is not in our NNR calculation. We back that out to get to our NNR M&O rate. We basically get credit for it on the voter approval rate. We have the debt rate and those state mandates in this calculation. Okay? Does anybody have any questions on that?
Yeah, explain that last part to me again. So the 48% of our budget that is state unfunded mandates, that's not part of our rate calculation?
It's part of our voter approval rate calculation, that we can go all the way up to the voter approval rate. Basically, the state has realized there are some things that we have to pay for, and that's why they give us, it's calculated in the limit, the max limit that we can set at our tax rate before we have to go out for voter approval.
Okay.
Small amount of flexibility.
Yes.
Very small.
Okay. Any other questions on that? Okay. We got through the boring part. Okay, now we get to some slides. I'm going to throw up some slides for historical purposes for us, the Brazos County, as well as for the city of Bryan and the city of College Station. Just so you know, these are all from their prior budgets and their proposed budgets. This is all out on the internet and public information. So the first thing I want you to notice is the gray line is our voter approval rate. The blue line is our no new revenue rate, and that orange, brown, red line is our adopted rate. If you'll notice, the spread between our voter approval rate and our no new revenue rate expands and contracts based on appraised values. I also want you to notice that over time, our voter approval rate and our no new revenue rate have declined from FY22 to FY26. I also want you to notice, and we'll talk about this more later, that when you go to an NNR rate, which is what we did in FY23 as a county, it then impacts in the subsequent year your no new revenue rate and your voter approval rate. And that's because you're taking a tax levy at the no new revenue rate, which then is used in the next year to set next year's no new revenue rate and next year's voter approval rate. Are there any questions on that?
Commissioners?
No.
Okay, let's look at City of Bryan and their tax rate trends and their tax rate strategy. If you'll notice, the City of Bryan has held their tax rate relatively flat for the last 4 years. Their voter approval rate has went up in 23 and then has consistently gone down from that point to today, and their no new revenue rate has bounced around a little bit. You'll also notice that over time, their voter approval rate has compressed down to their adopted rate. I would speculate that next year, they will probably be challenged to stay at this same rate. Their voter approval rate will probably go down a little more, and they will have to adjust if the trend continues as it is right now. Any questions on that? And just so you know, this rate on FY26, it is their proposed rate. They have not adopted yet. For the City of College Station, I don't know why that graph has not had that up there, so I apologize for that at the very first on the voter approval rate for FY22. But if you'll notice, over the course of the last 5 years, they have tried, their strategy has been to try and stay between the lines. There have been a couple of times when they have gone up to their voter approval rate. At present, they are proposing at their voter approval rate. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And again, as you notice, the trend across all 3 taxing units is a downward trend in the no new revenue and a downward trend in the voter approval, with the exception of a couple little blips. Any questions on that?
Commissioners?
Okay. All right. Net taxable value. This is the amount of appraised value on the tax rolls applicable to Brazos County. On average, our appraised values increase about 6% a year. With the exception of 2 years, that would be FY23 and FY24, when the appraised values jumped over 15% both years. Okay? That's important to notice because, we'll go back if I can get this to go backwards. When you have a huge jump in appraised value, it impacts your no new revenue rate, and it impacts your voter approval rate. Okay, the next piece that's germane to just this tax year. The prior year value loss. We talked about earlier in calculating the no new revenue rate, how the prior year value loss is directly related, and also when calculating the voter approval rate. Then the prior year value loss is directly associated with what our prior year appraised value is as of today. We had a record number this year of litigation lawsuits that were resolved and resulted in reductions in appraised value on our tax rolls between July of last year and July of this year of $128 million. If you look at the chart, you will see that this is exponentially more than what we have on a normal annual basis. We have run for the last 4 years somewhere between $8 and $15 million in prior year value loss. This year, it's 10 times that.
And, go ahead, Commissioner Nettles.
Well, so if I'd been anywhere and missed a $128 million valuation, I'd be looking for a new job. Who do the appraisal district folks work for?
That's not a question I know how to answer.
Now, but the loss is not necessarily all residential, it's more commercial, right?
I
So-
actually have a listing of all of those, and they're all commercial,
Katie.
retail. Actually, I think they're all commercial, residential, and towers.
These are your new large sky rises and such around campus.
Apartment complexes. I have not gone through and looked at every single PID to determine.
Sure.
They're all legal entity names, so it's hard to tell from
Yeah,
the legal
yeah.
entity what it is without drilling down and looking on the Brazos County Appraisal District's website as to the actual location of the property. But I have notes on that.
No, that's okay. I
But-
just wanted to make note of that because,
It's
you
like
know,
120 accounts,
we hear more
basically.
from
It's
residential.
112 properties, to be exact.
112
we-
properties
Right, right.
where the
Lost
litigation was resolved.
128 million. Is it appropriate at this time to talk about the 2.8 billion of appraisal value still in litigation for the next year?
Yes, there's $2.8 billion still in litigation. It goes back to 2018. Some of those properties are from 2018. Just to educate the public, when you
2.8
protest your
billion.
taxes, and again, most of these litigation examples are going to be commercial entities of some sort, because the average citizen is not going to, the metrics are such that they're not going to hire an attorney to litigate the valuation of their home, because the price for the attorney is not worth the valuation change they would get. So these are mostly commercial entities. They have to pay their taxes and then go through the litigation process. Sometimes the property that they are litigating on, they're going back and challenging the values for multiple years, not just last year. But this valuation loss that we're talking about is just for 2024 valuations.
And so that it's not lost, you said there's 2.8 billion still in litigation.
Exactly.
With years back to 2018.
2018 to
Right.
2024.
Now, when I say that, please understand that's the whole 100% appraised value
Right.
of that asset.
Not the amount that would be.
Right. The loss that we took here was about 8 to 10% of the total appraised value of those properties. We're assuming that in the future, that loss on that if we did, I have to get my talking points, but I don't have them, sorry.
I think I can help you. 8% of the litigation value, 224 million at our current M&O rate would be 0.38 per $100 valuation. That would be approximately $855,000 in lost tax
Right.
revenue.
If they came back at the average deduction that they usually do, which is about 8%, the math on that turns out to about $900,000, just a little shy of $900,000 in tax revenue, general fund tax revenue. That does not count the debt piece, the INS piece.
Marcy, is the loss that we're looking at here, is that what contributes to the fact that the appraised values only went up 6%?
No, that's on average. Like, if you take those 2 years out
Okay.
of our 10-year metric, then on average, we go up 6%. It's just those 2 years we went up 15%. Actually, I think it was 15% the first year and 18% the next year.
Well, that makes no sense to me at all, because homestead values go up 10% automatically every year. And then every other property goes up 20 to 30%. So how is it that the total is only 6%? I don't understand that.
That's what the total appraised value that was given to us for our tax rate calculations.
From the appraised,
The appraisal district.
the Brazos County Appraisal District, right? We need to change that name just to Appraisal District.
How about State Texas Appraisal District?
Yeah. that-
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry,
Yeah.
sorry. Okay, I got that wrong. Brazos Central Appraisal District. It still has Brazos in the name. Okay.
I just, point of clarification for anyone listening at home, is we're talking about losses. I think I can speak for the dais. I don't look at that as a loss, like, oh, I was entitled to your money for this county. I see it as the county has made calculations based on revenues that were projected, and those have been greatly reduced through these successful property challenges, to which I say to the taxpayer, congratulations. And that the county now has some refiguring of a budget based on previous numbers. So that's what that's what I consider a loss, is the number changed.
Right.
I don't like how it infers an entitlement upon the taxpayers' dollars. I know you certainly don't infer that, but I want to make sure people at home understand that there was a certain projection of revenue predicted based on valuations that has now changed. And that is a loss then of that number. That's why it's called a loss. Just point of clarification. Maybe
Well, and just, yeah, and just the idea that we have somebody sitting over there saying this is
Yes.
what it's going to be, and they're so far off the mark that now we're paying for it.
Yeah.
The taxpayers are benefiting for it, but, taxpayers deserve predictable evaluations. To go from 6% annually to 15 to 18%, that's not
for
predictable.
2 years, yeah, and then
Yeah.
go back, yeah.
Commissioner Brown?
I was going to say the same thing. Bentley, I agree. They totally missed the mark. The appraisal district totally missed the mark when they overappraised all these properties, and the people that own them said, time out, this isn't right. And that's why we have this huge loss.
And that invites the bigger conversation, because I agree with both of you. It's like, well, why did they do that? Are they following rules from Austin, and that's the Austin Appraisal District and Bryan? Yeah, bigger, but for where it affects us this year, big changes. Big, and Bryan and College Station have been on the news talking about their big changes, so, yeah.
Well, and it's a risk analysis from the commercial real estate owner, because if they don't think they can win, they're not gonna go spend a bunch of money on lawyers. So it's clear to them that these evaluations were out of line. And so now, as a county, we're looking at losing money that we were told was gonna be part of the tax base, right? So normally, we lose some of that every year, and that's expected. What is that typically? 200,000 to 300,000?
It's that chart right there, between 10 and 15, between 8 and 15 million dollars over the last 3 years.
Yeah, so compared to what last year?
128 million.
128 last
Yeah.
year, and the year before that was, looks like it might have been about $4 or $5 million.
Wow.
That makes it really hard to predict a tax rate that's going to generate the revenue to cover the budget that we've voted for.
And this news hit 2 weeks ago? Or
Yes.
3?
Well, when we got our
And we know Miss
TNT in
Payne-
early August.
Early August. And we know Ms. Payne has been working on the budget since March?
Yeah.
Or before? Since January. Just good timeline to understand.
Yeah, I would fully expect us to continue to lose some of that tax revenue as people were successfully challenging these evaluations.
Well, I think that's why it's important to talk about the 2.8 billion of appraisals still in litigation from this point going forward. Also, for the listening audience, we did have a conversation, which to my chagrin was one of the first between the city of Bryan, Bryan ISD, College Station ISD, and the county of Brazos with the appraisal district, trying to figure out. Since that meeting, we will have monthly reports and quarterly conversations from this point going forward. So this does not ever happen again.
And I just want to really applaud that's a regular meeting that'll be going on quarterly, that everyone got together on the same page, because the inconsistency, again, you're trying to predict a budget. You've got to produce these services for the taxpayer, and fluidity of these valuations make it impossible. So I'm really glad that quarterly meeting has been established. Good job. And I hope that brings some fruit and hopefully makes these roller coaster graphs go away and have something a little more solid, a little more predictable, and a little more fair to the homeowner and business owner.
So we know we're moving ahead with potential revenue loss, appraisal evaluations that come to the appropriate appraisal, which will net a loss. going forward. However, we have to watch the legislature, on the other hand, to see if we go from 3.5 to 2.5. So fun times in the budgeting world of governmental entities within the county.
I wanted to also just point out one thing too, in the context of large increases in valuations and then the subsequent prior year value loss. Let's go back to our tax rate graph. We set a no new revenue rate in the midst of large jumps in valuation that now are being corrected through a prior year value loss.
Mhm.
Is there any questions about that?
No.
Okay. I'm struggling with this mouse pad, folks. There we go. Okay. So now, let's talk about the prior year value loss. The prior year refunds. Similar story, not quite as a large multiple. But usually we refund back somewhere between $200,000 and $400,000 in tax revenue we collected from the prior year. Because of litigation this year, the refund was just shy of $1.2 million.
Which is 4 times
Yes,
what we normally do.
yes. Okay, let's talk tax rates. Our FY26 tax rate, our no new revenue rate is 387,683. Our voter approval rate is 423,059. And our debt rate is 0.030246. So the most important part, I think, that is valuable to the story or the communication that needs to be clear to everyone, those here in the room and those watching, is that setting a tax rate is more than just balancing the budget for the next year. An optimal tax rate strategy navigates the current state legislative climate. We've talked about pending legislation taking our voter approval rate cap from 3.5 to 2.5. In my opinion, as a county, we need to plan for that to happen. Not if, but when.
But so far, it's not on the governor's call?
It is not.
Okay.
It's just through the Senate at this point, I believe. Is that
Yes.
right? Yeah.
We also need to set a long-term tax strategy where fund balance is used for long-term projects and or one-time charges. An optimal tax rate strategy should set a tax rate that covers ongoing M&O expenses, and in the future, then uses and considers debt to fund capital projects. Any questions on that?
Commissioners, we talked about a lot.
Yeah, we did.
So this is the time
Excellent.
to discuss.
Right, excellent presentation for us and for the community.
What do we have to do to get to the no new revenue rate for this new budget?
Well, we're going to go through some graphs. Do you want to
Can I
talk
ask a
about-
question, Ms. Turner, before you run out of here quickly?
I'm not running.
I know you're not. So if you set a no new revenue rate based on an appraised value that's technically
We don't know what.
not what it was, and now we know what it is, if we set a new rate based on the numbers we have now, can that be our no new revenue rate? Or are we held to the former no new revenue rate, or is that
The no new
too
revenue.
creative thinking?
I understand. I think I understand what the question is. Basically, do you get credit for mistakes from prior years before last year? No, you don't. The calculations are just based on
Correct.
last year.
Well, and one of the questions I had, your calculation on emergency contingency funds, shouldn't that be changed now based upon the $1.2 million tax revenue that we refunded?
Refunds. Yeah.
It will. Basically, we have to wait until we get our audited financial statement, and then I will come back to you next year, sometime after March, and then our increase may not be as much, or it may be a decrease. I don't know. No, I have to wait till I get final audited numbers.
That'd be poor planning. So, I'm going to clarify what you're asking. So are you saying taking no new revenue this year, the proposed
Working
rate,
off
no
the
new
numbers
rev-
we had from March.
Yeah, so take no new revenue this year and then add the hits that we've taken to that? So we would, even despite all of this, be very close to no new revenue, but make up for these hits in anticipation of perhaps a 2.5% rule being put on the state? I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'm trying to ask.
Right, no, I'm asking the same questions.
Okay.
That we have a responsibility to work with the numbers that we have now and not put the county in jeopardy in an 8 to 10 year free fall.
What's becoming clear to me is I think through the good work of everyone on the team, we were looking at a no new revenue this year before these hits potentially as being, so if we took the no new revenue rate for this year and accounted for these hits, that might lend us at a rate that is very close to no new revenue, but doesn't paint us into a corner with a potential 2.5% rule being put on us.
Correct. Doesn't give us the wiggle room to adjust.
And also
But I think
just-
Marcy's fixing to do this for us. Correct?
Oh, yeah. Hey, Marcy.
Hi.
How about
I'm
I
not
shut up
done
and
yet.
let you,
Sorry.
I'll be over here if
also-
you need any help.
Do you
the-
need a break? Because we're about to get into models now.
Do we have an abacus we can use?
So, and also the impact of the likely percentage we're going to lose out of the $2.8 billion that are currently in litigation.
It's about
I mean,
900
that
grand.
should be predictable for us. Is that something we can take off our proposed revenue so that we don't make an error in our tax rate calculation?
It's actually part of our tax rate calculation. So when they do the no new revenue rate, they look at everything that's basically in litigation, in review, and they do a percentage. The appraisal district does a percentage prediction of how much of that value will come off. It usually runs between 6 and 8%. So it's actually already in our tax rate calculations.
So I hate to ask this, but do we check their work? Because I don't have a lot of confidence right now in our appraisal district numbers.
I have the backup reports for the valuations that they use those calculations off of.
And when did you get those backup reports?
Last week sometime, I think.
For the first time?
Yes.
Just want to be clear. Thank you.
Again, I've only worked here 18 months, so, but yes, yes. Okay.
I'm sorry, I should ask the question. Did we have to beg for those? Sorry.
I got them last week. Okay, so let's go through tax rate calculations. You'll see on this chart, the no new revenue rate is here with our valuations, our appraised valuations. It adds to the general fund over last year about $639,000.
Which typically we,
Usually we add between $2 and $3 million to the general fund total revenue budget on our no new revenue rates. I would assume I'm not a mathematician on the details of how but I would assume that this is lower this year because of those one-time impacts.
Yeah, so that fifth column is the one that concerns me the most. The estimate at 98% collection rate, which clearly isn't accurate anymore, correct?
The total general fund revenue, which number are you talking about?
he's talking about the 98% collection rate period, just, correct?
Right.
The
So
collection rate is basically how many people are going to pay on time. That's what that is.
Not us keeping
Not,
it.
not refunding, not evaluation changes. That's just people paying on time.
Okay. Which people do, I do. I understand that, but
There's 3 of us, I see.
yeah,
4.
5.
Okay, so
Isn't it?
then this chart also gives you a varied number of tax rate options and the amount that will increase the general fund revenue for next year. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. The highlighted pieces are basically our VAR, our voter-approved rate, with our unused increment. And our unused increment, again, last year, for this year is .017176. So as the Commissioners Court, you can set a tax rate anywhere between here and here. Last year's tax rate is right here, and the year prior is the darker pink. Okay? Now, again, on the PowerPoint slide that we went over earlier, a tax rate strategy, one of the challenges of it is you can set a tax rate strategy for just next year, or set a tax rate for just next year, but a tax rate has implications beyond next year when you set your tax rate. So we're going to go through a couple of slides just to give you all data to help better inform your decision on what tax rate you're going to set. The first is if we stayed at the NNR rate for 8 years. I just went out 8 years because that's plenty dates. If we stay at the NNR rate for 8 years, I have a couple of
The
assumptions.
current NR.
Current NNR rate. And when I mean NNR rate, I mean the tax revenue from an NNR rate. There's a couple of assumptions that I've made that I want to make sure everybody's very clear on. I'm growing the total ad valorem by $2.5 million every single year because when we normally do an NNR calculation, that's about how much additional revenue on an NNR we get to the general fund, okay? So that's basically our ad valorem taxes growing $2.5 million per year all the way out to 33. The next piece that we haven't talked about, we have a constitutional amendment coming up in November to raise the business personal property tax exemption from $2,500 to $125,000, which means if the voters pass that,
Let's go with when they pass it.
when they pass it,
They will pass it.
there are 9,000 business personal property accounts in Brazos County. Worst case scenario, if all of those accounts are valued at over $125,000, so we have the max amount of exemption taken on every single one of those accounts, at our current M&O rate, we will take almost a $4 million reduction in our general fund revenue next year. Okay, we have that piece in the works as well that we need to consider when we're talking about our tax rate.
I think we can bank on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to happen for sure.
The other pieces of the assumption in all these models are that we're going to grow our other revenues by 2.5%. Being real conservative. Again, 3 years from now, and you come to me and you say, these actual numbers are nothing like what you put up 3 years ago. These are estimates. These are snapshots. These are predictions with the data we have right now.
Did you hear that? In 3 years, she's not going to run away from us. We can still come to her.
I heard a 3-year commitment.
I did too.
Okay.
I did too.
Okay, so the next assumptions, that we're going to grow expenses at 2.5%. Given the climate that we are in, inflationary pressures, I think that's, some would argue that we have no idea where we're going on that. But the days of expenditures staying flat year to year are probably gone. The other pieces that I've added into this model are the ME office, the medical examiner's office, is coming online in 26, 27. I just have the expenses. Trevor got me, Capital Projects got me some numbers that were submitted that he had received from Montgomery County 18 months ago. I did basically an inflationary calculation on that. This is just to run it, not salaries, because those people have not been hired yet. So this is just operations only to run our medical examiner's office. I don't have any calculations in here for any revenue that might go with that if we were to, outsource some to other counties. And then also we have 101 North coming online. I have a half of year's worth of operational expenses in '27, and then annual expenses increasing at 2.5%. Got some numbers from the city of College Station on how much it costs them to run their new city hall, utilities, insurance, fire contracts, elevator contracts, and the like. Just no personnel, no additional personnel, just running our new courthouse facility if it were to come online sometime in '27. Okay? These are all, by the way, these maintenance and operations expenditures are all the all the ongoing maintenance and operation expenses. No one-time charges, those have been backed out. Okay? No funding of capital. This is just continued service level maintenance and operations expenses. Okay? When we do that on an NNR, we are going to need about $12 million just to balance the ongoing maintenance and operation expenditures of the county for this year. It's a different number than what Nina just quoted because she's got one-time charges in there and transfers. Okay? If we stay at the NNR, notice what happens. That continues to grow into 32, 33, and by that point, we have dipped into $165 million of fund balance. If, as a court, the decision was we're going to hold to the NNR for the next 8 years. Okay. Now, let's go the total opposite scenario. And that is, the court decides to adopt the voter-approved rate for this year. The assumptions are still the same, 2.5% growth on all other revenue, 2.5% growth on all other expenditures, the constitutional amendment. But now I'm also assuming that in this scenario, we are going to the VAR every single year. And I'm also assuming that we're capped at 2.5% on that. So now I'm growing, in addition to the $2.5 million that comes online within, so instead of that, I'm growing revenue 2.5% every single year, tax revenue, all the way up to 32, 33. With that strategy, again, this is just M&O expenses, not one-time charges. We are almost covering, we're $1.7 million short on covering our M&O ongoing expenses with our revenue. We get to a net positive situation where our revenue is covering our M&O expenses in the FY29, FY30 budget year. And to get there, we burn through $8.5 million of fund balance. Any questions on that?
Commissioners?
Okay. Now, so we've got the two extremes of your options. Whoops. Let's go to the next one, which would be our current tax rate, 0.4197, backing out the debt, just the maintenance and operations portion of it. Staying at the current tax rate, that number then comes to $5 million for this year, and we go positive in 31, and we burned through $23 million of fund balance to get there.
What's that number again?
$23 million.
23 as opposed to 8.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the next scenario is to go to the tax rate from 24, which is a penny less. $5.7 million this year. We go net positive in 31. We burned through $27 million to get there. I could do many other scenarios, but I thought I'd just give you the low, the high, and the last two tax rates. So you all are better informed about a tax rate strategy and the long-term applications of tax rate strategies. Are there any questions?
Commissioners?
It's a lot.
Ms. Turner, thank you.
I appreciate how you're putting that, especially for the public to be able to see how these decisions, what goes into it. It's very easy to, score a political point and do this thing or that thing, but a strategy that doesn't paint the county into the corner with variability in property revenue and potentially giving that revenue back, tax revenue, excuse me, and what might come from Austin, what might come from inflation, growing county. There's a lot that goes into the consideration of the rate. Appreciate you kind of making that easy for people to follow at home.
I think our role here for you all is to make sure you have the most information so that you can make the best possible decision.
Sure.
But there's also some things that we gave a nod to as we worked through this budget for the last 8 days, that if we backed some of those out, there could be some substantial savings. Like, as Bentley mentioned, the fourth floor of 101, what was $10 million? So there's some options there that I think that
Keep in mind that the fund balance should be used for capital projects. What she's referring to right now is
M&O.
to keep us afloat for maintenance and operations.
yes.
And so with the tax rates in the past histories, that's why we're still negative, that 15 million. We need to make sure that whatever tax rate is set, that we're covering maintenance and operations. Fund balance should always cover capital. Can that 10 million be back into fund balance to help us limp along a couple more years? Yes, but we're going to be back here a couple years later, still in the same situation, not covering our maintenance and operations.
Well, hopefully a couple of years from now, the appraisal district will be run properly. And the first thing we need to do is defund them, but I don't know if that'll work, but
I was
a
going
nice
to pull up
thought.
one thing. I do want you have this in your packet. I do a house to show if you, whatever tax rate you pick on what Ms. Marcy has presented, what it would cost the taxpayer. Let me make it a little bit bigger. Annually as well as monthly, because sometimes it's easier to look at how much a cup of coffee costs versus, a tax rate. And so whatever tax rate Marcy has thrown up on the screen, I kind of took it into another avenue to show what it would cost based on annual and monthly for the homeowner. Okay? So if we stayed at the current tax rate, it would be additional $7.88 per month on just the county portion, not the cities, not the ISDs. This is strictly the county tax rate, because sometimes the public gets confused of what we adopt. The tax bill is the county's tax bill. This is just the county's tax rate portion of it, okay? And so I just wanted to give y'all examples of that as well.
So the column to the far right of that slide, it's not labeled, what does that indicate?
If this is additional revenue, that tax rate would come in. It matches Marcy's tax calculations as well.
Okay.
This would be the additional revenue. Okay. In previous, Ms. Marcy stated that we normally, our average is about $2.5 million that we would bring in if we stayed at the no new revenue rate. That's what I based on what I could increase the operations this next year. I didn't meet that 2.5. Remember on our spreadsheet that the total increase on maintenance and operations was $2 million. So I stayed under what we would have had brought in if we stayed at the no new revenue rate. What's hurting us is just our tax rates in past history not matching what we were bringing in our maintenance and operations. And you could tell that there's a lot of red in revenue, which is hurting on the expenditure side. And so it's hard to balance the two because we're estimating, right? And so when the appraisal values came back as the litigation loss, it hurt.
So that goes back to Commissioner Brown's question a minute ago. It's time to right the ship now, not wait another cycle.
So we bring the data to y'all, and y'all are going to have to make the hard decision. I hope that we gave you all the information in order to make the decision, this decision next Tuesday. I do want to go into a little bit more detail on the process on the proposing the tax rate and setting the tax rate in a couple weeks, if there's no more discussion on the information that has been provided.
Just to clarify, tell me one more time, if we went with the no new revenue rate, what would that leave us
And fund balance or what?
in fund balance?
So I balanced the budget based on the no new revenue rate. It would leave us 17 million, but I would still have to balance 15 million in order to cover the maintenance and operations.
Okay.
So this might be 15 million next year, and another 15 million the following year. And so we're balancing the fund balance. We're balancing the maintenance and operations with fund balance, and we have been for several years.
And if we were to not do the fourth floor on 101, then that could be
It's
moved.
different.
Well, I know that, but,
It just gets dropped back down into fund balance. So instead of 17 million, it would be 27 million.
okay.
But here's the thing, if Commissioners Court approves the fourth floor, because yes, this has to go to vote. If I do not budget the additional 10 million and Commissioners Court approves moving forward, the money's not there next year. We will have to wait an additional year to go out for contract because the money's not budgeted.
Okay. Thank you.
Because if it's not budgeted, we're not able to use it. Any more discussion on this portion of it?
Commissioners?
No, thank you for the
Thank
presentation.
you. And appreciate the long-term consequences of the choices we make today. 2 years from now, 3 years now, 4 years from now, we will still be having to make even tougher choices.
Yes, ma'am.
The county will be, like we hear a lot of counties, will be in financial trouble.
Right. So as we conclude all the budget workshops, I have gathered all the information in order for me to follow the proposed budget next Tuesday after the tax rate is proposed. So next Tuesday, there will be an agenda item for the Commissioners Court to propose a tax rate. Sometime after that, after I've finished all the inserts to the budget booklet, I will follow the proposed book with the county clerk as well as the county auditor. Sometime after that will be proposed online. I have 10 days to make the adoption, which means you have to have public hearings on the tax rate as well as public hearings on the on the proposed book, and we have to adopt everything out of regular Commissioners Court. So we have 2 weeks pretty much. I'm going to give Commissioners Court a deadline. After the proposed budget has been presented, the only way to make changes to the adoption is by written notification from Commissioners Court, and the deadline is next Friday. Which means that if you want something taken out, what has been proposed as of to date, the only way to take it out or to add something, I will have to have a written notification only from the court members, not department heads, not elected officials, but from the court members. Very specific, I would like to take out $10 million on the fourth floor, or I would like to add 10 million to the fourth floor. You need to tell me where you would like to take it from, either contingency or the fund balance, and we can hold this discussion once it's been submitted. The deadline is next Friday because I have to write wording on whoever submitted that to read it out on September 9th because y'all would take it, you would make the motion and it would be voted on. Okay?
So just to clarify timeline, 8/26 proposed tax rate.
Correct.
Changes must be written and submitted by August 29th.
Correct.
Then we will discuss the budget on September, or ratify the budget on September 9th.
Correct.
Okay, so where was the 10-day period?
The 10-day period is starting next Tuesday. And so next Tuesday will lead us until, of course, we only have regular Commissioners Court every Tuesday, so that will lead us into September 9th. In between there, I have to do 5 days of notification to the public that we're holding public hearings. And of course, our wonderful Eagle newspaper only takes certain submissions. They have certain deadlines, and so we have to meet those deadlines to meet our 5-day notifications. And so we're running on a tight ship, and so we have to be on our toes. Are there any questions on that part?
Commissioners?
Oh, great job.
Well, thank you. I do want to make a little announcement, or a little announcement. As we conclude all the budget workshops for FY26, I want to take a moment to recognize the effort, time, and collaboration that made this possible. This year's budget cycle required careful planning, open discussion, and tough decision-making to balance the many needs of Brazos County. From the earliest departmental submissions in January, yes, we start in January, to where we are today. The process reflected transparency, accountability, and shared commitment to serving the residents of our county. I'd like to send additional gratitude to the Commissioners Court for their leadership and guidance throughout the workshops and hearings, the county auditors and budget office staff whose hard work in compiling, analyzing, and presenting detailed information kept this process clear and efficient, department heads and elected officials who thoughtfully presented requests and worked in partnership to find solutions that serve both their offices and the county as a whole, and most importantly, the employees of Brazos County, whose dedication to public service gives meaning to the numbers and priorities reflected in this budget. The FY26 budget represents more than just financial figures. It is a roadmap for the year ahead. Shaking.
You're doing great.
It reflects our priorities, our values, and our responsibility to wisely steward taxpayer resources, as well as ensuring essential services are delivered effectively. Thank you to everyone who has played a part in this process. Your teamwork, professionalism, and commitment to Brazos County made this year's budget a success. Stressful, but success. And together we have laid the groundwork for another year of strong, responsible governance. Thank y'all.
I agree with
Nina,
all of
thank you.
that.
Commissioner Condress.
I agree with all of that, plus just a big shout out to you, Nina. The county is in your debt, and we don't like debt. No, the county's in your debt. You did a great job facilitating all of those things you just named.
Right.
You're the linchpin in that, and I just really appreciate you and the job that you do.
And you did it every day with a smile. I mean, you're always happy.
Right.
I saw her raging in the parking lot a couple times, Fred.
Right. And let me just say, you know, you sit here and thank you all very much for what you do. For me personally, getting to know and getting to work with the fine staff that work for Brazos County, I know that, you know, the numbers, people, you know, you're here to serve Brazos County. I think you all do a phenomenal job. I know not everybody who serves the county is in the room, but I want to say thank you to you all, and that I hope that as we're the leadership of the county, that we're able to acknowledge that. It may not be that we can pay you what you're worth, but thank you for what all that you do. I have gotten to know some really fine people and understand better how you serve this county, and sometimes we're not able to do all that we can do. I mean, you know, on the one hand, people say, you know, we don't want to cut our taxes, but then pave my road. You know, do what you all do for the county. I want to personally thank all of y'all for what you do. The numbers are going to be tough. How we serve the county, how we are looking to the future for the county, that's the hard part. Because she did a 10-year assessment of what could happen on the decisions that we make right now. And it is not pretty. You know, we're going to feel some pain. So I personally want to thank all of y'all for everything that you do. And as to the best of my ability, I will continue to do all that I can to help you be successful in what you do. So just thank you. You both, in terms of the budget and how you educated us, how you educated the public, you did a phenomenal job. Personal kudos to you from Wanda Watson.
Yeah, I just want
Commissioner Nettles.
Gosh, am I the last guy?
I don't know.
I thought precinct one's supposed to go first.
I got the gavel.
1, 2, 3, 4. But okay.
We'll get numerical order from here on out.
There you go. So, yeah, thank you for all you do. No help from our appraisal district, but, you know, I typically come in here sometime on.
Excuse me, from not our.
Yeah, the state's appraisal district located in Bryan, Texas.
Grammar's important.
I typically stop by here sometimes on Saturdays to pick up stuff, and almost every Saturday, I've noticed your vehicle here and the light on, whether it's early or late. So I appreciate your dedication to the county and your diligence in taking and doing your job. So thank you.
Commissioners?
Just a big old thank you.
Nina, thank you. It has been a pleasure walking into this gig as acting county judge, taking the gavel from my good friend Dwayne and his time in need, to get to know and meet everyone in this audience present today and listening. And for those of you that don't know, Nina's department is one of the largest in the county. It is her and Spencer, which is a grand total of 2. And I know Marcy and Katie and their team has been very helpful. But from my perspective, we are in good hands.
Yes.
It is comforting to know that you guys put in so much time. You have a great team and a great work ethic, and your true intentions are for the best of this county. Sitting up here on the dais, I've heard rumor, but I don't know for a fact, so I'm going to just speak out of turn. It is good to have all 4 commissioners here for every budget workshop. That is what we're here to do. I've heard rumor that this does not happen in the past. Cannot validate that, but I am glad that we are committed to work with you to find the best tax revenue, tax rate, and budget for this county to be successful. We are blessed with 4 incredible cities and 1 incredible university and Blinn College. The responsibility at our hands is great, and we don't take that lightly. And we know that people are coming back because they value the education they received at Texas A&M, and there is no finer place to live in the 254 counties than the county of Brazos, questionably where it all started, this great thing we call Texas. So thank you all for being here for all 8 days of this budget workshop. You have the deadlines, 8/26, 8/29, and 9/9. Thank you, and God bless, and we are adjourned at 10:21.